Welcome to this first lecture of AGD 357 Web Design for Project 3, Wireframing, Portfolio, and Prototyping. So what we're going to do here is we're going to do three things. We're going to do wireframing, we're then going to prototype your homepage for your portfolio, and then you're going to execute your portfolio. This will happen until the last 2 weeks of school, and which you'll wind up doing a creative portfolio relevant to your major. So here's the brief, and I'll give you due dates on Blackboard. Assignment 1 will be, I'm going to ask you to look at this video, wireframing, including and this lecture video. And I want you to take a look at 3 professional sites, and then using wireframe.cc, create screenshots and 2 screen captures of the sources. That will be due at the end of this week. Assignment 2, I want you to make some sketches of your portfolio site. I know this is going to change, but this is all about getting some ideas together and starting to get an idea. What I want you to do is that I want you to look for some inspirational sites and take 2 screenshots and make 2 wireframes. So that will be due for next Sunday. The third assignment is going to be a prototype. What I want you to do is then I'll give you a worked example. I want you to create a prototype of your home page using Photoshop. The reason for this is that I know that you might want to do this directly to something like Wix, but what I want you to do this for is that this will help you clarify your ideas before you get to Wix, and then you can take the elements out of your Photoshop files, like your layers, and then you can just basically save those off and put those into Wix and just put them up. It should actually really clarify your thoughts. And then when we get back to school, hopefully that we get back to school, Project 3 for about the next 2.5 weeks will be for you to create your portfolio. So you'll be creating a portfolio for your practice, or a couple of you have a project that's much like your business. So we'll be doing that. We'll be taking like 10 pieces of content, and you'll be doing 4 basic categories. About, you'll be creating your galleries, and you'll be doing a contact and a 4th element. So I'll give you some examples of previous student work that got good marks, and you can look at those and look at the elements within them. Actually, I've learned a lot of new things over the last couple months about good web design, and I'm hoping that my communicating those to you will help actually improve yourself a lot more than even the work that's got good marks in my previous classes. So I just gave you a little shot of that. So what's the first thing we do here with assignment 1? There's this thing called wireframing, and it's basically like sketching out a website. And I've got a video from Evolve U I want you to look at that gives a really good outline on how to set up a wireframe. And let's talk about it a little bit more right now. So what this is, it's basically a way to put together a website at the structural level. In other words, you're just boiling this down. You don't have any sort of visual content. You're just saying, here's where the hero is, here's where the headlines are, here's where this content is, here is where the menu is. And basically, really, in studios, wireframes are really commonly used to lay out functionality and content that when you're looking at how you navigate it and what your user needs are, and how they go through your website. So usually, you usually use these things early on to look at the basic structure of a web page before you start putting stuff in. By doing this, what you do is that you're really looking at clarifying your mind as to your intention on what you want to put on the screen, how you're going to set up your menus, how your interaction is going to be set up, what content you want to put out there, and then you go forward. So, wireframe is essentially UI design. You hear these letters UI. I hope that you might be familiar that it's user interface design. So here we have the CNN page, and it's the international page. It's a couple years back, but that's okay. So really what it is that this is a layout of a web page that talks about what interface elements are going to be on the critical pages. So it's really important to think about this with your interaction. Even though with our portfolios, we're not going to be terribly complex, you may be in a situation in your internship or in a future studio where you're going to have something a bit more complex, and you want to think about these things as you're going into this. So what you want to do with a wireframe is give a visual understanding of a page, early in the project, to get your team and your stakeholder, your client, to get a buy-in on this before you put a lot of work in putting a lot of content in and all these sorts of things, and then your client says, hey, you know what, I don't know about this, but what happens is that with the wireframe, you pretty much agreed as to what's going to happen, and then really what you're doing is you're putting in, you're going in and adjusting content. So your interactivity is in place, your structure is in place, everything's in place. So, what these things can be done, these give, the overall and secondary navigation, to try to make sure that, the site meets your user expectations. This is going to be a little bit weird because of the fact that the user in this case is, the client in this case is you. This is your portfolio. And then the user, well, this is kind of interesting in this case because what happens is that this could be your human resources director that's considering you for an internship or a job. Or if you're doing a business, it could be your your potential your potential customer. So this is all super important. So, and then the other thing is that I know we like to say, well, this is going to be, this is going to be, this is going to be, and before we even do it, and I understand this. I've worked with all of you a lot in this case, and you're saying this is going to be, this is going to be, and this is going to be. Well, this is a way to quickly get this down on paper and get this sketched out to show me how it's going to be without making really complex mock-ups and prototypes. And it's an easy way to put these things together. And from a corporate perspective, from a studio perspective, it's just really just quicker and cheaper to look and make revisions in a wireframe format. So the thing is this way you can go through a set of design cycles to the final version a lot quicker, and this gives you confidence, and this gives the design team confidence, and gives the client confidence that this is going to be what they want, and it's fulfilling everybody's desires and objectives. So, and when does this happen? This is usually actually when you're talking about a real professional web design, case study. This is basically the first thing that happens. So in design, we have this thing called user-centered design. So what happens is that we use wireframes to basically take care of the user factors and get everybody to buy into the project at the time in the beginning. So then the next thing we do next week is that we'll wind up doing a prototype, and we'll wind up looking at the how to test the wireframe as a prototype, and then you get feedback on the prototype, and then guess what? You have this absolutely set in stone, ready to go. Just make your website, and of course things develop over time, but you really know what you're doing by the time you get to Wix or Squarespace or whatever your platform is. So a lot of times you can hand draw these. I really want you to do this digitally, but we'll use wireframe.cc, and this will be in the second tutorial, which I'll show you how to do the one of the professional website to wireframe. That'll be your first assignment. So that'll be our first tutorial. And so, if we're going to be used for a prototype, well, sometimes we use it in HTML, but as I said, in this case, we're going to wind up using wireframe.cc because I think it's really, really, really easy. So, by the way, if you look here, this is actually an app wireframe that some of you have had me in information design. This is one thing we use with Adobe XP. So, wireframes are used in all sorts of different user interface design apps and interactive media apps. So one of the greatest advantages of this is that it really gives us an early framework that we can review and make sure that everybody's happy with it. So in a way, you're the client, but maybe you can imagine that I'm sort of the client in this case. So when you're making your portfolio, you're maybe making your portfolio for you and for me. So maybe that's one way that we can work at it in regards to user-centered design. So, so in building this, we can also take a look at this as an early feedback mechanism for making usability tests. And the thing is that this is just really easy to change in the beginning, that once we get into concept designs and much more complex stuff, once we all agree on this, we all really have a lot more confidence as to where we're going. Practically speaking, though, wireframes make sure that your content and functionality are in place correctly, based on what we need. So, and as the project moves forward, we can have this as a good working document, so that we can talk about how the project keeps going and how we keep on track in regards to the scope of the project. There's some drawbacks to wireframing, of course. So the thing is that wireframes usually don't have a lot of design or account for technical things and content. We don't always have a really full idea of how this is really going to look, and I know that a lot of times we want to make sure that we know exactly how this is going to look, but we're only about halfway there. Um, so the thing is you as a designer, you're going to have to be translating these wireframes into a design. So the thing is that you're going to need to talk to me about talking about, why everything is where it's at. And sometimes when you wind up having, your content, there might be too much stuff to do. So you might have to work a little bit on how to make everything fit. So there we go. Okay. So that's a wireframe and how it works. What do I want you to do for Wednesday? I want you to do this. I want you to take a look at 3 professional sites, and then I want you to make 3 digital wireframes of them and make it a PDF with the format AGD 357, P3, wireframe 1, name, ID, PDF. The wireframe of your homepage is going to be wireframe 2. So in the next tutorial, I'm going to show you how to do this. I'm going to go into wireframe.cc, which I'll give you as a web link in the teaching resources. And we're going to take a look at, I don't know, I might look at Cartoon Network or something like that, and translate it into a wireframe. Being that a lot of websites are much more than one screen, I'm not going to ask you to do more than one screen. I just want you to get the idea of wireframing, putting things together, and giving me the screenshot of the web page, and then give me a screenshot of your wireframe.cc page, and that's going to be it. So I hope that'll be really straightforward. And then after that, I want you to next for next class, I'll give you an assignment. Assignment 2 will be to look at some inspirations, give me some screenshots of that, and then I want you to try to start putting together wireframes using Wireframe CC, using the building your own portfolio. So I think that'll be pretty cool. So just to look forward a little bit, you're looking at me saying, what's the difference between a wireframe and a prototype? So the thing is that a wireframe is basically structure, functions, content. So the thing is that when we go over into Photoshop, and I want to do it in Photoshop basically because of the integration of Adobe's sharing capacities. You're putting in style, colors, and right content. And as I said, the reason why I'm saying this is that I want us to do it in Adobe because I want to basically be able to call on cloud content, because this is something for future semesters. I'm looking at trying to use the usability between apps through the Adobe Cloud interconnection to be able to speed up our workflow. So I think that's it. I'm about to go to the next page, and I think this will be the end of it. Yep. So the next tutorial in this series is going to be basically doing one of your assignments, and I'm going to go through and look at a professional website, and then I'm going to go over to wireframe.cc, and I'll mock it up, put it into, put the captures into a Word file, and then get it basically just show you how to do 1/3 of your assignment. Thanks a lot, and I'll see you in the next tutorial.